Hello and welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's start with a look at the top headlines this hour. European Union leaders agreed to borrow money to loan 90 billion euros to Ukraine for its defense over the next 2 years. They dropped for now a plan to use frozen Russian assets after divisions within the bloc. Authorities say the suspect in last weekend's mass shooting at Brown University is found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators say the gunman, identified as Portuguese national Claudio Neves Valente, is also responsible for killing an MIT professor 2 days earlier. Violent protests erupt in Bangladesh after youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi dies from gunshot wounds sustained in Dhaka last week. Authorities say media buildings are torched and vandalized as the interim government declares a day of mourning and urges calm. The U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is set to hold talks in Miami with officials from Qatar, Egypt and Turkey on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire. A White House official says the meetings come as efforts continue to sustain the truce despite reported violations on the ground. Australia will launch a national gun buyback scheme after the mass shootings on Sydney's Bondi Beach last week. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the move echoes tough gun laws reforms introduced after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, as tributes are held for the victims of the tragedy. The U.S. military says it carried out kinetic strikes on 2 vessels suspected of drug smuggling into the Eastern Pacific. U.S. Southern Command says 5 suspected narco traffickers are killed and no American forces are injured. China and the U.S. step up separate efforts to broker a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia ahead of a regional ministers' meeting. Around 60 people are killed and more than 500,000 displaced in the worst fighting in years after a truce brokered by President Trump collapsed. Japan reaffirms its long-standing pledge not to possess nuclear weapons after reports a senior security official raised the idea as a deterrent. The government moves to distance itself from the comments made, and this is amid concerns over a worsening regional security environment. All right, viewers, we start the bulletin with some breaking news developments coming in from Bangladesh. The unrest there is following the death of July uprising leader Sharif Osman and has led to the suspension of Bangladesh's top newspaper Prothom Alo and Daily Star as the protesters have torched its offices in Dhaka. Meanwhile, security forces have fanned out across Dhaka and other cities after overnight violence over the death of a youth leader. Protesters torched and vandalized leading newspapers including Prothom Alo and the Daily Star. The interim government led by Mohammad Yunus has urged calm and promised a transparent probe as election loom on February 12. Anti-India protests have intensified and Saturday has been declared a day of street mourning. Let's listen in to what some of the residents are saying.
যে সৃষ্টিটা হয়েছিল সেইটাই মুভ করে ডেইলি স্টারে পর্যন্ত আসে এবং পরবর্তীতে তো আপনারা সবাই দেখেছেন যে কী অবস্থায় গেছে। এখন বর্তমানে যে অবস্থা আছে প্রতিটি ফ্লোর হচ্ছে মানে প্রতিটি ফ্লোরের অবস্থা খুবই দুর্বিষহ এবং পুরো একটা অফিসকে কীভাবে এক রাতের মধ্যে শেষ করা যায় এটা একটা উল্লেখযোগ্য উদাহরণ আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি এখন।
রাতেই আমরা ফোর্সকে মোবিলাইজ করছি এবং প্রয়োজনীয় ইনস্ট্রাকশন ব্যবস্থা নিচ্ছি। আমরা যতটুকু পারছি আমরা করছি, আমরা ব্যবস্থা নেইনি এরকম না।
আচ্ছা, সেক্ষেত্রে এখন কোনো ব্যবস্থা নেবেন কিনা যে যারা এই ঘটনা ঘটিয়েছে
এখনো
তাদের বিরুদ্ধে কোনো ব্যবস্থা নেওয়া হবে কিনা?
আমাদের পর্যাপ্ত ব্যবস্থা আছে, এইটা কি ব্যবস্থা নেবে এটা পরবর্তীতে সিদ্ধান্ত হবে, এখন এই মুহূর্তে এটা বলা যাচ্ছে।
রাষ্ট্রের চতুর্থ স্তম্ভ হচ্ছে মিডিয়া। এখানে তারা যদি কোনো দোষ থাকে ত্রুটি থাকে তাদের সমালোচনা করতে পারে, আলোচনা করতে পারে। তাদের জ্বালা একটা অফিস পুড়িয়ে দেওয়া তো কোনোভাবেই কাম্য নয়, কারণ এখানে অনেক রাষ্ট্রের ডকুমেন্টস থাকে, অনেক তথ্যপত্র থাকে। এটা কোনোভাবেই কাম্য হতে পারে না, কারণ এটা হচ্ছে তাহলে ফেসিবাদী সিস্টেমে আবার অবতারণা হলো।
And joining us now is Ambassador Veena Sikri, who is the former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sikri, for joining us here at NewsX World in this discussion. Ambassador Sikri, would you say that these anti-India sentiments are being managed to delay the February election in Bangladesh?
Well, you know, the anti-India rhetoric accompanied very much the regime change operation against Sheikh Hasina. Right from the time that the Jamaat-e-Islami had been leading this regime change operation, supported by Pakistan and certain external powers, right from that time, Jamaat-e-Islami has been whipping up this anti-India rhetoric. And today, they are fully in charge. They are the ones who are controlling the scene. Mohammed Yunus is just their mouthpiece. He says whatever they want him to say. And this new party that was formed, National Citizens Party, of which the person, as you have said, Usman Hadi, was shot dead during an election rally. But this is not a students' uprising. This is not a revolutionary person or not a students' uprising. It was a very well-managed, meticulously designed regime change operation, and the leaders of the Jamaat-e-Islami and their student wing, the Islami Chhatra Shibir. Now, it's the Chhatra Shibir which is managing all this. Now, the moment this person was attacked during the election rally, the Yunus regime started blaming India. The Indian High Commissioner was called in, and which is completely incorrect. You know, we've never done anything against Bangladesh's interests. We believe very much in the people to people, and we said that we want the elections to be free, fair, inclusive, and participatory. But now that he had gone for treatment to Singapore and he's passed away, once again those same anti-Indian riots, the same anti-India rhetoric, and the Indian High Commission in Dhaka they tried to attack the Indian High Commission in Dhaka. They attacked the Assistant High Commissioner's office in Rajshahi and Khulna yesterday, and then last night Chittagong Assistant High Commissioner as well. And the police had to lob hand grenades to prevent that, and the army then had to step in. So I think this kind of anti-Indian rhetoric is not cutting any ice, because they're trying to link, the so-called program against Sheikh Hasina with India. But the fact of the matter is that more and more people are disenchanted with the Yunus regime, and they are coming out, saying that they want free, fair, and inclusive elections. And to blame India for that is ridiculous. And also, I want to ask one more thing. Why is your channel not covering the absolutely barbaric murder of the Hindu?
We are.
Yes. He was beaten to death and then burnt at the stake. This is not 21st century. This is medieval. This is absolutely medieval and barbaric. And I think this focus on Usman Hadi and leaving out this person who died so cruelly in Mymensingh district, very close to Dhaka, is wrong. And I think that the Bangladeshis are just trying to whip up this the Jamaat-e-Islami in order that they may get some votes. They think that if they do anti-India rhetoric, they'll get more votes. But actually, that time is past. And we want inclusive elections. Without that, there will be no stability in Bangladesh. And they should stop whipping up. And, India also called someone, the High Commissioner of Bangladesh, day before yesterday, and said to him in no uncertain terms that this is not going to be, this is not going to be allowed. You can't do this. And we told them that you just have this free, fair, and inclusive elections, and everything will come back to normal.
But now with the latest violence, which is of course echoing sentiments that were viewed last year, including those of attacks on Bangladeshi Hindus and the attacks on Indian embassies and consulates, the question of course remains if these elections can be free at all. But what I want to ask you is about whether the Pakistan ISI is going to exploit the Bangladesh crisis, or if it's even funneling some radical elements there, and how China may be gaining from this.
Well, China doesn't need to do anything as long as Pakistan is doing their bidding. So Pakistan has been the main state sponsor leading the regime change operation last year, backed, as I said, by external powers. And ever since the Jamaat-e-Islami became the de facto power in the nation July last year, Pakistan has tried to come back to Bangladesh in a way that has not been possible for them for the last 54 years. And in the last 18 months, you've seen them trying to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army. You've seen them, all the earlier restrictions of 54 years have been overturned, whether it concerns trade or visa restrictions or cargo restrictions, checking of cargo, and so many other factors which were not there earlier. And also they have openly declared that their state-sponsored jihadi groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, they are also now present in Bangladesh, because the Bangladesh authorities have just stopped doing that. And we know that immediately after the regime change operation last year, all the convicted terrorists, Jasiruddin Rahmani and others from the terrorist groups that were trying to establish themselves in Dhaka, but for which Sheikh Hasina had taken strong action, all those were released from jail and they are also back in action. And we also see that, Bangladesh individuals, including Muhammad Yunus himself, speaking in China, are making all kinds of rhetoric against India's northeastern states and talking about giving access and so on. So all this is a part of a big anti-India game that has been played, and I think India is watching it and is going to step in and is going to take some action, because this is absolutely not acceptable the way it is going in Bangladesh. And I think that in addition to all of this, the issue of the relentless attacks against the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and the Ahmadiyyas, and the Chittagong Hill Track people, all that is indication of the barbaric nature of the regime that is operating there, and they absolutely have no concern for anybody's human rights or anything at all, and I think the world should be sitting up and taking notice of this.
Certainly. Ambassador Sikri, would you also say that Bangladesh is trying to provoke India in the Bay of Bengal, especially after the Nationalist Citizens Party leader made that remark about severing the Seven Sisters from India?
Well, these are a lot of provocative and incendiary statements that they are making. I think they're serving two purposes. First of all, they are trying to provoke India into, but we have made it very clear that we have continued the humanitarian aspect of the trade, the rice, etc. is going. But we do know that despite everything, there's so much unemployment in Bangladesh. Factories have closed down because the regime in Bangladesh does not want people to import things from India. They're saying go and import from other countries, and of course in the meanwhile, Bangladesh factories are losing their competitive edge because they're not being allowed to import from India. So this is one thing, to break the umbilical cord, the very close economic cooperation that has existed for decades and centuries between India and Bangladesh. And the second is to actually try and wean the people of Bangladesh away, because there are many people in Bangladesh, not only the vote bank of the Awami League, which is still intact, but also many others who value the liberation war. So the real effort is to go to the pre-1971 level of cooperation, say for example between Pakistan and Bangladesh, which was then East Pakistan. So Pakistan's objective certainly is to bring back the pre-1971 command and control structure that existed between West Pakistan and the then East Pakistan. So people are now calling it a Bengali Pakistan, so that, this is what, but the point is that the more they do this, the regime, the Jamaat-e-Islami-led regime, the more and more the people of Bangladesh are actually realizing that what they had under Sheikh Hasina and the good economic cooperation, 6.5–7% annual rate of growth, so much growth that they could even graduate out of the LDC status, and all that, the people are valuing that more and more. And you see that every time something happens, like yesterday when there was these riots again after the death of Osman Hadi, they go and destroy some more cultural icons of Bangladesh. So in July last year, they broke down the homes of Sheikh Mujib. Yesterday, there is a very well-known center, Chaya North Cultural Center in Bangladesh, that was burned to death, burned to the ground. The Indian Cultural Center was burned to the ground in August last year. The home of Rahul Anand, another singer from India, was burned to the ground. So anything that reminds people of their cultural identity is being vigorously destroyed. But the people are not accepting that. I think this is one thing that the Jamaat-e-Islami is not understanding, and they're trying, the more they don't understand, the more they're trying to use repression and oppression to get people to come on their side, but it's not working at all. And in fact, the more that they do this to destroy the icons of culture, the more they get a reaction. One of the decisions of Sheikh Hasina had been that in every university there will be a singing teacher, a music teacher, in every school and college also. But Mohammed Yunus decided to reverse that under the pressure of Jamaat-e-Islami. He said, no, we won't have singing and music teachers or PT, physical training teachers. We will have religious teachers. And the students in the universities erupted. They came onto the campuses, they came out of the campuses on the streets and said, look, our culture and our religion are equally important to us. Culture and religion are two, intrinsically intertwined parts, they have two sides of the same coin. So actually, the people have strongly resisted, Mohammed Yunus's moves to radicalize the nation and the university students and all of that. So all this is not even coming in the papers because the media is so fully controlled. And today we see that even the media houses are being burnt.
Yeah, closed down. The three prominent ones there, yes.
So this shows the kind of rigidity and the absolutely controlled regime, control of information, control of media, control of any activity of the people, that's what the Jamaat-e-Islami is aiming for. But the more they do it, the more the people are revolting against it, and it's leading to a very dangerous and volatile situation in Bangladesh.
But Ambassador Sikri, given that Bangladesh is going completely rogue, who do you think is engineering this chaos?
Well, certainly I would say Pakistan and the Jamaat-e-Islami, certainly, because Asim Munir has already said that the next attack on India is going to come from the east. So obviously he has this in mind that he will embed himself with his army will embed itself with the Bangladesh army, and so they will plan some strategies against India. Definitely this is what is behind it, because the people of Bangladesh, they are not like that. We know, we worked for the last 15 years with Sheikh Hasina. Before that even I was there when Khaleda Zia was Prime Minister, and while we did have a lot of problems on the security and other issues, but this kind of kind of calling out and so on, it never happened at all, at any time, not even under the military dictatorships of Ziaur Rahman and President Ershad. So, this is something that is being forcibly brought into the psyche of the people of Bangladesh, but they're not accepting it. That is the point, and that is why all this uncertainty, volatility, violence, mob violence, it's a complete anarchy. And the speech that Mohammed Yunus made today, addressed to the nation, it was so bland, and it was as if like, King Nero fiddling while Rome is burning. It was like that. Dhaka is on fire, and he's saying, oh, be calm, be strong, we'll have democracy, we'll do this, we'll do that. Nothing at all to tell the people that why are you attacking the Hindus and the Christians and the Buddhists? Why are you attacking the ordinary people? Why are you destroying the wealth of the country by bringing down buildings and media houses? And what is it all for? It will only impoverish the nation further, So this is very self-destructive of their own objectives. And Dr. Mohammed Yunus couldn't even bring an iota of emotion or appeal and saying that they're going to have free, fair, and inclusive elections. Nothing at all.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sikri, for joining me in this discussion. And with that, viewers, we are going to move on now. Following an European Union summit in Brussels, French President Emmanuel Macron has said that Europe will have to find the right framework to re-engage in Russia-Ukraine discussion in a proper manner. Speaking at a press conference in Brussels following an European Union summit, Macron emphasized that Europe must find its own framework for engagement rather than relying solely on intermediaries. Earlier, European Union leaders failed to coordinate the use of frozen Russian assets for a preparation loan for Kyiv. Instead, they agreed to lend Ukraine 90 billion euros for the next 2 years. Let's have a look at what Macron had to say.
Je pense qu'il va redevenir utile de parler à Vladimir Poutine, oui. De toute façon, je constate qu'il y a des gens qui parlent à Vladimir Poutine. Donc, je pense que nous, Européens et Ukrainiens, on a intérêt à trouver le cadre pour réengager cette discussion en bonne et due forme. Sinon, on discute entre nous avec des négociateurs qui vont seuls discuter avec les Russes. Ce n'est pas...
All right. And joining me in this discussion is retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi, who's an international relations and defense analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Very good afternoon to you, retired Major General, for joining us here at NewsX World, and thank you very much for giving us your time. Major General, now, what is Macron really referring to when he says that he does not need mediators in this discussion with Putin?
Well, Kriti, the point is that through the mediators, or the negotiators, there have been no progress on the either peace agreement or even cessation of hostilities. So obviously now I think the other option is to deal directly with President Putin because he has not played up to the current mechanism of negotiators where Witkoff or even President Trump's own son-in-law Kushner, all they were involved.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
So
point
is this
that,
an attack on Trump then? Trump and his negotiation team?
well, to some extent, it is a direct indication that this mechanism is not working, and therefore now is the time for the European Union, European countries to come directly into conversation with President Putin. And President Putin had earlier indicated that he would like to have direct talks with the European countries. So the possibility is that now, if the other option or other mechanism has not worked out, then they have to try the second option or second mechanism of direct talks because currently the Ukraine war is creating a lot of tension among the European countries because there have been violation of airspace of Poland and the Baltic republics, and the European Union is possibly preparing for showdown with Russia. So I think the best option now would be to have direct conversation because otherwise this mechanism or through intermediaries or negotiators actually has stalled. It has not made any substantial progress, and to that extent I think directly it is a finger pointing at President Trump that mechanism has not paid off and European Union will have to go on its own. And one point I want to make, that is the national security strategy which was unveiled on December 4, where President Trump has categorically mentioned that European policy or the NATO policy against Russia has failed, and the relation between America and Russia and Europe need to be stabilized. So obviously, I think this is quite a message for European countries that they have to now fend for themselves because as President Trump wants to have a stable relationship with Russia and also with China. So I think this is the possibly only way out. Preeti.
All right. Thank you, Major General, for your opinion there, but I request you to stay on. Viewers, moving on, let's also tell you that China and the US are renewing their separate efforts to reach a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, days ahead of a special meeting of Southeast Asian ministers on the border conflict. Around 60 people have died and more than 500,000 have been displaced since hostilities resumed last week between the Southeast Asian neighbors, shattering a ceasefire that President Donald Trump had brokered. Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn is also set to join the meeting in Kuala Lumpur on Monday, which would be the first face-to-face meeting between the governments since the fighting resumed on December 8. Thailand and Cambodia accuse each other of moves that led to the breakdown of the July truce, which was expanded into a wider agreement to help settle the conflict in October. The neighbors have long disputed sections of their 817-kilometer land border. The fighting now stretches from forested inland areas near Laos to coastal provinces. And I now request retired Major General G.G. Dwivedi to join us back into the discussion here.
Yes.
Thank you, Major General, for continuing to stay with us. Now, China is stepping in to mediate the Thailand-Cambodia conflict, but at the same time, it continues to supply arms to both these nations. Isn't that speaking of a high level of hypocrisy?
Absolutely, you're right. China always plays double game, and this is nothing unexpected. In fact, China has a very close relation with Cambodia. They have a naval base in Reims, and they also have good relation with Thailand. That is more of the economic relation. The point at issue is that this ceasefire, which was brokered by President Trump in October, was very fragile, and it was quite expected that it could be violated any time, and that's exactly what happened last week. The point at issue is that this region actually is now becoming more volatile, and therefore Chinese have deep interest in ASEAN countries per se because they are the very big trading partners. They have a trade to the tune of about $500 billion, and it is not in China's interest that this region is unstable, and this conflict between Thailand and Cambodia carries on. So therefore, Chinese have tried to step in directly, and even Americans have come in forward that they also are going to pitch in, because the ceasefire has not actually lasted, and in case this conflict is not handled, it is quite likely to escalate. And as it is, in last about week, 10 days, more than 60 people have lost their lives, 500,000 people have been rendered as refugees. So therefore, this effort by China, of course, is a double speak, but then China has a axe to grind with both the countries. And another point is that ASEAN also have pitched in, but then ASEAN have not come out very forthrightly, because they don't have a mechanism how to implement what are the decisions are taken. And now again, on Monday, there is a meeting in Kuala Lumpur under Prime Minister Abraham, and let's see what happens. But the point is that today the issue is quite volatile, and until all sides pitch in, that is America, China and ASEAN, to bring the two warring countries on the table and resolve the issue. But the point is that issue is very deep rooted. It is almost 1,000 years of history behind it, and the border is almost 817 kilometers. So issues are contentious, but at the same time, the peace effort must go on, and this issue must be at least resolved temporarily, and then the long-term peace agreement can be signed. But that's why China has pitched in, because they have a lot of stakes in this whole region, and more so because as both a trade and also for the strategic reasons, Kirti.
All right, thank you very much, Major General, for joining me in this discussion. That's all the time we have, viewers. And we move on now to tell you some news that's coming in from Japan. Viewers, Japan says it expects appropriate action from Finland after a racist image controversy involving members of the far-right Finns party. Tokyo's concerns were formally conveyed through its embassy, with Japan's chief cabinet secretary Minoru Kihara saying Japan will maintain close communication with Helsinki. The row, dubbed the Slanted Eyes scandal by Finnish media, followed a social media post showing Miss Finland pulling back her eyes with a caption referencing a Chinese person. Although the title holder apologized and said no offense was intended, she was stripped of her crown. The controversy deepened when lawmakers from the Finns party posted similar images in apparent protest. Finland's Prime Minister has apologized to Asian nations. The Finns party is a junior coalition partner, and the government has previously faced no confidence votes over racist remarks by party members. Let's listen in.
本件につきましては、在フィンランド大使館を通じ、フィンランド政府に対し、今般の事案への憂慮と適切な対応への期待を伝えてきております。引き続きフィンランド政府との間では緊密に意思疎通を図っていく。
And before we wrap up this bulletin, let's bring you some tech news. OpenAI has launched a ChatGPT app store where users can explore and download various applications. Developers can create chat-native experiences, while the platform includes both interactive apps and connectors for data access. The San Francisco-based AI startup has also opened its apps SDK for developers to help them build chat-native experiences that bring context and action directly into ChatGPT. The company also confirmed that it is renaming connectors on the platform that help bring data from other websites like Google Drive as apps as well. OpenAI says it is also working to surface relevant, helpful apps directly within conversations, using signals like conversational context, app usage patterns, and user preferences. The AI startup is also exploring monetization options for apps, including digital goods. And that's all we have time for. Do keep watching NewsX World for all international news and updates from around the world.